Welcome to the Denver Gazette Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Schmedeke, and today we are brought to you by Applewood Plumbing, Heating, and Electric, who have been serving Denver homeowners for over 50 years. They are the proud sponsor of the Colorado Avalanche and of this podcast. But on this podcast, I am joined by Vinny Benedetto to talk about the defending champion Denver Nuggets, who had ring night last night. Vinny, did you get a ring? That's my question.
I did not get a ring. I'm not an employee of the team, and therefore I didn't get a ring. And if I did get a ring, I probably would have pawned it and paid off my car and, put myself in a better financial situation.
Did you get a close-up look, though? Did you get to see pretty close? How big is it? It looked like my fist. Like, it looked amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it would be necessarily comfortable to wear. I was in the locker room post-game, and Christian Brown brought it out and was showing it to people, and then he had to get Reggie Jackson's help to unveil the ring within the ring.
Oh, yes.
So it's a pretty intricate design. There's a lot going on there, and it's really pretty cool.
Yep. So, ring night was last night. The Nuggets beat the Lakers. You and I just talked that we kind of expected the Nuggets to come out a little flat after all that stuff, and boy, that was hardly the case.
Yeah, they did so much talking about how last season was over and all that, which, we expected them to say. But then to see them go through the ring and banner ceremony,
yeah.
I think there were different points where you could really see how much it meant to people. Like if you saw Nikola Jokic looking up at the banner, it was about as emotional. It's reading into it a little bit, but it felt like he was kind of going, experiencing the emotions of, realizing what had actually happened. And there were a few other moments where it just felt like guys were really into the banner and ring ceremony, and I thought that might have led to, like we were talking about, a slow start especially, but they come out and win the first quarter by 14 points, and it was a dominant first quarter, and then the Lakers were able to get back into the game there in the second.
And it just kind of showed that, they're the best team at basketball. They're the defending champions, but this starting five, who's competing with this starting five? Not many teams.
Boston?
Boston, yeah.
Like Boston's got a good five. Phoenix, has a great three, but I don't think they get to five very well.
And Beal was already in street clothes last night.
Right, yeah. So I think that's going to be something to follow throughout the season is how healthy Phoenix is throughout. But yeah, I think Boston might be the only team out there with a comparable starting five.
So the Nuggets and Lakers rivalry it's really heated up again. LeBron and AD had their conversations or whatever it was, but the Nuggets just, it got to 1 point, didn't it? At one point,
I think it got to three or four early in the fourth.
But it just kind of shows that the Nuggets are, I don't want to say head and shoulders above them, but the Nuggets are just flat out better than they are.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the starting five. It's just significantly better than the Lakers starting five. And the Nuggets are going to figure out that bench unit. I think that's going to be tweaked for quite a while before they settle on one group they really like. But it was just like whenever the lead got in danger last night, Malone got his starting five back out there. I think he put Nikola back in about a minute or so before he really planned to. But as soon as that group gets together, it's kind of like it reminds me of the Warriors' death lineup that we talked about from a few years ago, where it was just like, in case of emergency, press the starter button, and then we're back to safety pretty quickly.
Well, and I noticed that too when the Lakers would get close. Jamal Murray he had like an and one, and then he hit a couple jump shots, and all of a sudden the lead was back to 10. And we've talked about Jamal Murray plenty. He's back. We all know that. But this is the year that he's been challenged to go All-NBA and All-Star by his coach. Last night, what was he, 21 and 6, I believe, or something around there?
Just one turnover.
Yeah, just one turnover. He looks like a focused guy.
Yeah, and like listening to him throughout the preseason, it was interesting because all the stuff we heard from Michael Malone and general manager Calvin Booth is not the expectation, but they want to see Jamal pick up in the regular season where he left off in the playoffs in those 20 postseason games. And if he does that, the belief is he's going to be an All-NBA or an All-Star and potentially an All-NBA guy. And then you talk to Jamal about it, and he is just like throwing water on that entire situation. Yeah. He's been kind of coy about what he wants for himself this upcoming season. But I think if you watch that first quarter, it was pretty clear that he's coming, and he wants to kind of continue to build on the respect that he's earned in the last year. So I think even though he might not be saying it, I think that's what he wants as well.
And he has to know that if he makes All-NBA, his contract is gigantic.
I'm sure his agent has reminded him about that. Yeah, because at media day it was pretty funny. He got asked about, if there were any conversations about an extension, because he could have signed an extension this offseason. He was asked about it, and he came off as serious, but he said he doesn't know how any of that stuff works. And it's just, I don't buy that for half a second. He knows very well, and if he doesn't, that's on his agent to make sure he knows what's at stake here. But I think that's something he's hunting for within the bigger picture.
And his ascension to national star, like I watched the game from home. New Balance commercial is on every break, and he is the front and center. Him and Kawhi now are the two faces of New Balance, and you wrote about a little bit about that in your preview story for the season. His playoff run has just vaulted him. I mean, the Nuggets have never had. I mean, maybe Chauncey and Melo had two stars like this. Mm-hmm. So they're set up for years. I don't want to say
they are. Yeah, and it's like you can have two stars. Plenty of teams in the league have two stars.
Yeah.
But nobody has two stars that fit together as naturally and as seamlessly as those two. And it's just like Nikola said he picked up a basketball a couple times this offseason, and it's just like you remember when like the N64 would freeze and you just had to unplug it and plug it back in, and then it was good. It's like that's that partnership. It's just like we can be away from each other for 2 months, and I think the only conversation they had in the offseason, Jamal said, was drunk calls to Jokic during the offseason. So they don't really need to communicate. They don't really need to be on the court together. They can just kind of put them back out there in a competitive environment, and off they go.
In the starting five, they all do their thing. KCP hit some shots. He played some defense. Aaron Gordon was bullying Austin Reeves all over the place at times. Are you worried about Michael Porter Jr.'s shot yet? I know it's early, but no.
I've
he had 12 boards last night too.
Yeah, and I think that's the most encouraging part if you're the Nuggets is that it was kind of a continuation of the finals where he couldn't buy a bucket, but he was finding ways to impact the game in other ways. And I think for the most part he took pretty good shots. It wasn't like he was like hijacking possessions to get a sidestep three up. But yeah, I've just seen too much of Michael Porter Jr. shooting the ball. Yeah. Like the last 6 games, I guess, or 7. I don't think he shot it very well in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals, but he shot it better earlier in that series. But I think 7 games dating back to last season is too small of a sample size to have too much concern about where his shot's at. I think he's gonna snap back into it. But the entire starting 5 played well. Like you look at Aaron Gordon, 15 points, and he had 7 rebounds, 6 assists. KCP with 20 points and 3 steals. So it was just like all the talk about how well the whole group fits together was on pretty big display last night.
And Aaron Gordon harassed LeBron James for 30 minutes too. There's also that point. And, you heard it. The Who's Your Daddy chant is there now. Mm-hmm. That's not going to stop anytime soon, I don't think. If the Nuggets are leading, it's going to stop. How do you think some of this sits with a person like LeBron?
It's got to eat at him.
It does. He's won one time. They've had one good. Last year in the 2020 run with the Lakers has really been his only good runs with the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think this is as close as he's come to facing basketball mortality.
Yes.
He's 38 years old. He's talked about wanting to play with his sons, which if he wants to play with both of them,
that's a couple years still.
That's a couple of years away. But yeah, just where he's at in his career, and I don't think he's faced, it's way too early to say the Nuggets are a dynasty.
Yes, we've been through this, yes.
But they look like a team that the championship window is going to be open for a few seasons now, and I don't think there's been a team like that in the NBA that LeBron has had to go up against since the Warriors.
Right.
And that was...
He'd have to play them 4 times a year either.
Right. and with the Warriors, that was... Those Cavaliers-Warriors series were... 5-6 years ago now?
Yeah. So the Warriors are the last team to repeat, right? And that was 17-18. So
So it just the aspect of having a team that's positioned to keep the championship window open for multiple years while LeBron is aging. I feel like this is a new thing for him to face, where it's, maybe I don't have a great shot at a championship in the remaining X years of my career.
And to kind of talk a little bit more preview of the season, the Western Conference is a gauntlet all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a really big fan of the Lakers offseason.
Yes.
Gabe Vincent is a guy, and they didn't have Jared Vanderbilt last night, and that's something we saw last postseason was teams putting a lot of length and size on Jamal Murray to kind of take him out of his rhythm, and Vando's a guy who I think could do that pretty well. But, I like Jackson Hayes. Not a big Christian Wood guy, but he's a talented player for sure. So I thought the Lakers had a really good offseason.
He's 6 fouls to throw it.
Right. But as good as the Lakers offseason was, last night showed that, last night's game was a bigger margin of victory than I think any of the Western Conference Finals.
I think so. I think you're right.
So,
yeah.
If you would have asked me yesterday if Game 1 would have shown that the Nuggets took an even bigger step than the Western Conference Finals, I wouldn't have guessed that for sure. But yeah, Western Conference is definitely a gauntlet with the Suns. The Warriors are old, but they're good.
Yeah.
And there's, I think Minnesota's probably going to take a pretty big leap this year. So Oklahoma City could come out of nowhere. New Orleans, there's the Clippers. There are plenty of teams that could make it tough on any given night.
Well, the Nuggets they play Oklahoma City the third game of the year, right?
Yeah, it's
in OKC.
Friday in Memphis, Sunday in OKC. Sunday afternoon in OKC.
So, Memphis is still whatever. We don't know with Ja being out for 25 games. I think the Nuggets are catching a break by playing them early, probably, in the season. But I think the biggest Nuggets question is, you mentioned the bench. It's going to be a work in progress. Julian Strawther did not play. I guess Michael Malone had some comments about him after the game that he wanted him to play, but he didn't get him in or something.
Yeah, it was interesting because he said, he was hoping to get him in, but it just didn't work out that way. And I think you look at the guys who got in. I was kind of surprised he didn't get in for the final 43 seconds.
Yeah.
Jalen Pickett got that bucket. But I think he was just, Colin Gillespie deserved to make an NBA debut after going through what he went through last season. And I think at that point, he didn't want to put Julian out there in garbage time. I think he might be somebody he looks to as more of a real second unit kind of player. But it just didn't work out last night with, I guess he's got to knock off either Christian Brown or Peyton Watson for minutes as it stands right now, because the Nuggets played 9 guys in meaningful minutes last night. One of those guys, 4 guys off the bench. One of them's going to have to be a second unit ball handler, which Julian Strawther is not, and one of them's going to have to be a second unit big, which Julian Strawther is not.
Right.
So
right.
You got Christian Brown, who is also not going to be leaving the second.
No, he's not
unit.
going anywhere.
So really, as it stands right now, I think he's got to knock off Peyton Watson for some minutes. But I also wouldn't be surprised if, say, Friday in Memphis, if they're feeling pretty good at halftime, or maybe have a big lead at the in the first quarter like they did last night. If they go to a 10-man rotation, if they feel like it's a game they're feeling a little bit more comfortable with, as opposed to playing the Lakers on ring night.
Right.
I think everyone on the Nuggets said last night was just game 1 of 82. There wasn't anything special to it, but I think they really wanted that one last night. So I wouldn't be surprised if the next couple of weeks we see more games where they've got a 10-man rotation and Julian Strawther is able to get some meaningful minutes that way.
So Peyton, I had heard some stuff about Peyton Watson, kind of that maybe he was losing his spot, and then he was out there right away. What does he have to do to keep that spot? I mean, he plays pretty good defense. His shot seems to be a bit off at times.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting with that second unit because, I mean, when they've got Jamal, they've got a bona fide scorer they can lean on.
Yes.
But beyond that, it's like, where does the offense come from? Reggie Jackson can hit some shots. I think he feels much better about
him making LeBron fall was great yesterday.
Yeah, I'm writing about that for tomorrow. I talked to him in the post-game locker room last night, and he's a great guy. But yeah, so I think for Peyton, it's just going to be like, the defense always has to be there, and then he's got to grow his offensive game a little bit. And there's room in that second unit for somebody to step up and take more offensive ownership, because it's going to be a lot of Jamal. But then from there, Reggie Jackson's a solid shooter. Christian Brown's, I think, going to shake off a little bit of rust after missing the preseason.
Yeah.
Because I think he's either got to be a better spot-up shooter or a guy who can dribble it twice and attack a closeout and get to the rim. And we saw him. I think he almost put Rui Hachimura on a poster last night.
Yes, he did. He tried, yeah.
So I think that's the kind of mentality you want to see from Christian. But I think there's room in this second unit for somebody to grow their offensive game. And I don't really know what that's going to be for Peyton Watson. If he's more of a driver, I don't think he's going to be a spot-up shooter. But I think he's just got to find kind of an offensive role that he's comfortable with, and then that will allow him to kind of continue to grow.
And Zeke Naji signed that new deal a couple of days ago, right before the season started. It's his chance to be the backup big, and he's got to take it. I mean, he's got to take it on. And what did you see from him last night?
Yeah, it's really tough for Zeke. I think there was one great defensive possession where that group was just flying around, and it ended with a Peyton Watson block. I can't
Yes.
remember who he blocked, but it was kind of like help side. He
Yeah.
came over and swatted the shot.
I was going to say it was probably D'Angelo Russell, because every time I saw D'Angelo Russell have the ball, something bad happened. No offense to D'Angelo Russell. He's not guarding Jamal Murray, and he's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know why they start him. I don't really get it.
It's a tough matchup for
Yeah.
D'Lo.
Yeah.
But with Zeke, you know, his defensive versatility allows for that switching in the rotations
Yeah.
and everyone to kind of fly around. But it also makes it really tough because if you've got Zeke switched out onto a guard and those guards are attacking Zeke or, you know, going at him, it's tough to ask Zeke to switch out and guard a guard and then also man the defensive glass.
Yes.
Because he's away from the basket when the shot goes up. So I think he needs some help from other people rebounding. We've talked, you know, Zeke, small sample size, but he shot it great in his first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then last year took a big step back. And he said he's been reworking that 3-point shot or just reworking his shooting form in general. So I think he's kind of got to find a shot that he's comfortable with, because I think his role is going to be that switchable big and a kind of a stretch 5 is what he's almost playing, where they can go 5 out and just open up the floor for some of these guys to attack an open lane a little bit. But yeah, I thought it was, you know, if I had to grade Zeke's game last night, I'd give it, you know, a solid B-B. Like,
I mean,
it
what's he
wasn't
going to play,
spectacular.
15 minutes? I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I guess Malone said he did bring Jokic back early yesterday because they were kind of slipping away there in the fourth quarter. I'm sure he wants, you know, do you think Malone wants to probably play those guys a little bit less, especially in the beginning of the year? The starters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to see that throughout maybe even the All-Star break, where he's just trying to decrease the workload on these guys, because, yeah, that was quite a grueling playoff run, even though only one team took him to 6 games.
That, you know, yeah, when you look back and was like, oh, yeah, they went 16-4, you know, and that Phoenix series was probably I don't know, I heard Bruce Brown say that they thought Minnesota was the most grueling series.
Yeah.
But that Phoenix series, I mean, it's 2-2 coming back here. That's probably was the most stressful series they had.
Yeah, and the nice thing, I think if I remember correctly, I know they won Game 6 I think they won Game 5 and Game 6 in that series pretty comfortably,
Yes,
where
they
they
did.
could get some guys some time off. But, like, yeah, through 4 games, that was...
Yeah, I
kinda
think they blew them out in
knockdown.
Game 1, too, didn't they?
Yeah,
And then
because they were so good in Game 1.
Yes.
Up, I think maybe in all 4
Yes.
series. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask you next. That's funny because, you know, sometimes defending champs kind of cruise through the regular season, but I feel like home court means so much to them, but that's not going to be the case.
That home court is...
Like, they're going to want that top seed. They're not going to kind of cruise through the regular season like some defending champs you see.
Yeah, I think it's really important. You know, I don't think they need to go all out to get the number 1 overall seed, but I think top 2 would be really important to make sure you're at least have home court advantage through the conference finals. And, you know, we saw it. The Nuggets were able to win. They won a road game in every series at least one. So, yeah, I think it's important that they have home court advantage to a point, but I think having
Rest is going to be important this year.
Rest is also, it's going to be a balancing act for them, because I think they also have the confidence that they're going to be able to, if they are feeling good physically, they can go into somebody else's house and steal a game or 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did prove. You know, that was always the knock I heard when them go. Well, they were under 500 on the road and blah blah blah. But I mean, they lost 1 game in Minnie, they lost 2 games in Phoenix, and then that was it.
Yeah,
right?
They swept the Lakers and lost Game 2 against the Heat at home.
Yeah, so I mean, they proved that they were just fine. All right, let's do some big picture things. You did not pick the Nuggets to repeat in our prediction box. Paukley and I did pick the Nuggets to repeat. You picked the Bucks, right?
Picked the Bucks over the Lakers.
Bucks over the Lakers,
which is a pick I'm not feeling great about today. But at the time, I didn't feel great about having 3 Denver Gazette picks with us all picking the Nuggets to win it all. So I felt like I kind of had to zag a little bit.
But it's hard to not pick them, right?
Right. And to my previous point, I really liked the Lakers offseason. I thought, you know, LeBron is not a bear you want to poke, but yeah, if I had to do that over again, I might make a change.
All right, let's do some rapid fire NBA stuff. A lot of this was in our prediction section, but let's do it here too. And I think my first question is Jamal Murray all NBA this year?
I don't think he's all NBA, but I think he's an all-star.
So he doesn't get the huge contract.
Doesn't get the huge contract.
But he's still what's it 3 years, 150 or something like
yeah,
that?
He's going to be all right, but it's just not the super max
There's absolutely no worry about him not signing here, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't think so either. I mean, why would he? I mean,
It's a pretty sweet deal. And, one of those things like
he's beloved here too.
he's beloved here. We've talked about the combination with Nikola. Like, you're not going to find that anywhere else.
No.
Where you've got that kind of symmetry with another player. So yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about him leaving, but yeah, I just don't think he's going to be eligible.
I just think there's too many guards.
There's too many guards, and All NBA you've got 6 total guards,
right.
Whereas All Star you've got 6 or so guards from the Western Conference alone. So
yeah, I mean, you just sit there and think about the All NBA guards: Booker, Steph. So there's 2.
Dame could be
Dame.
SGA.
Yeah, so there's 4 already.
Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten to Luka or Kyrie.
Oh yeah, I forget that you count Luka as a guard, so there's that too. So yeah, it's gonna be tough for all
It gets
NBA.
crowded quick.
What about MVP for Nikola?
I think I picked Giannis to win it, but I think
I did too.
I think those two are going to be in the race all year long. I think there are going to be some people last year who are thinking about last year's vote and how that it's not going to age well. I don't think as we move into the future and look back at it. I don't think it's going to age very well. So
No, I think people are going to realize they really screwed up.
Yeah, so I don't know if that buys Nicole any goodwill this year, but triple-double in Game 1 is a good place to start for the MVP campaign.
Are the Nuggets over the 52.5 wins?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Last night would have.
55 could get them the top seed.
Yeah.
But when the West kills each other the whole time.
Yeah. It's going to be a gauntlet.
Yeah. How good is Phoenix?
I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting. I think Devin, the little bits of the
Booker
game,
was unreal last night.
the little bits of the game that I looked up and watched while I was trying to make deadline, Devin Booker as a point guard, I think, has some legs. I think,
Yep.
You look at that pass he made to Nurk for the game-stealing layup, I thought was a really impressive play.
Yep.
So, yeah, a nice win for Phoenix to beat Golden State. I don't think had Draymond last night, but to pick up a win without Bradley Beal, I think, was encouraging for their first game. So I think Phoenix is pretty good, but I don't have a great feel for exactly how good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when all 3 of those guys are out there. And again, this is probably poking a bear, but Durant looked a little old last night. He almost looked a little old in the Nuggets series too, when someone like Aaron Gordon harassing him. He looked a little. I mean, the guys. He was in the 07 draft. I was like, oh my goodness, he's been in the league forever.
Yeah.
I think he's
been in high school class.
And I hate saying this, but those guys are going to miss time. It's just the way the NBA works.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, it might be better for them if they.
Well, that's
miss
true
time.
too.
But yeah, I think looking at Durant, he was incredible through the first 4 games of that second round series last year. But then it felt like it kind of caught up to him a bit. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix is one of those teams that enters the playoff as maybe a 4 or 5 seed because they've dealt with some stuff throughout the season. But then they're going to be a team nobody wants to see in the second round.
Well, and that's how they were talked about last year, and then the Nuggets beat them. But that's how. I mean, when they had the 4 seed, I know as a Nuggets fan, I was kind of like, oh man, that means that's the second round, and it's not. Clippers, Sacramento, or whatever. And I mean, again, Sacramento could be really good this year. The Clippers, who knows? But you picked the Bucks. Did you pick the Bucks to win the finals?
Yep.
So you're high on Dame and Giannis.
Yeah, I think.
Giannis is my favorite non-Nugget. I love Giannis. I think
he's incredible.
Yeah,
and I think
I hope they get to play this year. Actually.
And I think he's going to unlock so many things for Dame that he hasn't had unlocked so far in his career. And then the Bucks are also so well situated to make up for Dame's defensive shortcomings when you've got Giannis and Lopez behind him. So yeah, I'm really high on the Bucks.
Who's the next disgruntled superstar?
Joel Embiid.
Is it Joel Embiid?
Yeah.
Because my next question was, where does James Harden play?
Yeah, because James Harden is already a disgruntled superstar. I already saw reports yesterday.
The Knicks are willing to offer.
Are preparing the massive offer to get Embiid out of Philadelphia. I saw other reports that it's not likely that happens this year. But what happens if I saw James returned to the Sixers today?
And they told him to stay home though.
Oh, okay.
He's not going to Milwaukee.
Perfect.
Yeah. At least that was this morning. Who knows?
and to that point, things change so quickly in the NBA that what happens if Harden is so disgruntled they have to take a lesser trade package just to get him out of town, and then Philly starts 15-15, or they're on the verge of not making the playoffs, and Joel wants out at that point. So I think he's the next guy to get moved if Philly doesn't make this Harden situation work out well for them.
How excited are you to watch Wemby?
I'm so excited.
I know.
I'm so excited.
Like, this will probably come out after they play, but it's the Mavs and them tonight, right, on national TV. Yeah, that's going to be must-see TV.
I was so close to picking him for Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie, just because. I don't know.
I just picked Scoot for rookie just to be different because Wemby's like minus 150 on the betting boards.
Not the most exciting pick, but I mean, there's a few times a game where he just kind of breaks your basketball brain in terms of blocking shots from what seems like 5 feet away, or dribble pull-ups from a 7'4" guy. Yeah, so I can't wait to watch him.
So my last one is, I know you didn't pick the Nuggets to win the title. When do you think they lose? Western Conference Finals?
That's what I had.
But are you going back on that bet?
Yeah. I mean, if I could make a quick edit, I think I had Lakers in 7 in the Western Conference Finals, and then the Lakers getting blown out by the Bucks in the NBA Finals.
Would you have the Lakers winning Game 7 here?
Yeah.
Wow. You really did want to go different than Fallen Eye.
I did, and if I had it all to do over again, but. That's going to be online forever.
I think Paul had Nuggets over Bucks. I had Nuggets over Celtics, who I think are really good. Colorado's Derek White is probably their starting point guard next to Holiday. I'd have to imagine. Mm-hmm. He's probably not the sixth man. They're going to be really good. Porzingis is another guy who, is going to be healthy for them.
Right, and that's a heck of a defensive backcourt with Drew and Derek White.
It is. I'll be interested. When do they play the Nuggets? It's probably later in the year.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But that's always a fun. Oh, I remember what I was going to ask you. How were the Laker fans there last night? Was there a lot?
No, I was sitting next to Matt Moore from the Action Network, and he's been around the team a long time, and he said that was as few Laker fans as he's seen in the building.
Because they were out there with Chuck and all them. They were Laker fans out there.
Okay. Yeah. So I wonder if maybe they showed up and struggled to get tickets because, I mean, there were some available yesterday, but like we were saying, 300 level. But yeah, it was. There weren't any, when opposing teams have come in the past, I've heard "Let's Go Bulls" chants or different teams come in and have their chants heard in the arena, and there was none of that last night. Like the loudest moments from last night were
"Who's Your Daddy?"
"Who's Your Daddy" is up there. The ring banner ceremony stuff. And then do you remember when LeBron hit the side of the backboard on that 3 early, first quarter?
I cheered from my couch watching it with my daughter. I was like, oh my God, he hit the backboard. That's lovely.
I think that was the third loudest moment. Maybe the Aaron Gordon left-hand alley-oop, but the LeBron side of the backboard thing, like the fans cackled. It was wild.
Well, that just reminds me of, was it Game 2 when he fumbled the dunk?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of turned that game a little bit because they were thinking it would be up by 12 or something like that. And, and he fumbled that dunk. But enough LeBron talk. All right, so Vinny, you will, we're full go. Season is going. What you said you were going to have a Reggie Jackson story coming up?
Reggie Jackson story for tomorrow. Just talked to him. You look back at his short regular season stint with the Nuggets last year. I think he shot sub 30% from 3.
Yeah.
And
he shot well last night, right?
He went 2 for 5 from 3.
Okay.
And he shot it well throughout the preseason as well. Just talk to him a bit about the benefit of having a full training camp and preseason with the team, learning how to play alongside Nikola, obviously the ring banner ceremony moment, and sending LeBron to the floor and hitting the 3. We also talked about, I had to make sure to hear from him about that. So yeah, we'll have that in tomorrow's Denver Gazette.
Well, he is so important because if he can take over, on that second unit, that makes the trade deadline a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about, I don't know what they'd even trade. I mean, they're pretty set in stone for a while, but Reggie Jackson's I think a bigger part of this than some people realize.
Yeah. And I think, just even thinking about trades, like at this point, moving anyone in the starting 5 seems foolish.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the bench,
I realized that Justin Holiday didn't play yesterday, did he?
Yeah, and I was in the locker room last night waiting for Jamal and Nikola to get to the podium, and Malone was in there talking to Justin Holiday. We don't know the contents of that conversation. Might be something I ask him tomorrow.
Yeah.
But he's a veteran, kind of 3-and-D guy, so it feels like there would be a fit for him here. I wouldn't be surprised if, like we were talking about earlier, if they get to a 10-man rotation at some point, if he also gets some minutes. Because, I mean, he was one of the few guys they went out and signed this offseason.
Yeah.
But back to trades real quick. You're not touching the starting five. And then there's so many young guys on the bench where it's just like Christian Brown, I don't think.
No, he's no way. He's not going anywhere.
And especially given the team's salary cap positioning going forward.
They have to have those guys.
The contributors on rookie contracts are going to be super important, which is, I think, part of the reason why Zeke got that extension is because you need cheaper players on under team control. Yeah. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to move either Christian or Peyton at this point. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot of logical trade pieces as it stands now. Obviously, a ton can change in the next couple of months, but right now it just doesn't feel like there's like this guy is disposable.
I mean, again, they're the defending champs, and they rolled on ring night, so I think they're okay. So you think that it'll get to a point where Jamal's not staggered with that unit?
I think in games they feel pretty comfortable
when they're
but it's tough because going back to even last season, Michael Malone has always said he just feels much better when either Nikola or Jamal are on the court. So if he can do that for 48 minutes and have one of those guys on the court at all times, I think that just makes him relax a bit more on the sidelines. So, yeah, in meaningful games, I think we're looking at a 9-man rotation in the regular season. But say they play, who do I want to pick on? We'll pick on Detroit.
Okay.
Because they're far away.
Detroit comes to town.
It's a 10-man rotation.
You're seeing some Julian Strother and some Justin Holiday.
And also, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we just get some rest nights because, the Nuggets don't have the 2 stars that put you in the position where the NBA can fine you for resting guys. Right. So if they're in good shape, Michael was just saying last night, like early in the season, I think they've got 6 games in 9 days coming up, or a few 3 and 4 sets.
Of course they do.
Of course they do. So I wouldn't be surprised if throughout the season we see games where not just Nikola and Jamal, but like, oh, let's get KCP a night off. Christian, you're starting. Julian, you're in the second unit. Or Justin Holiday's picking up minutes. I think that's just an easy way to keep – because they've got a lot of guys, I think, on this team who expect to play meaningful minutes. And I think mixing in some rest consistently throughout the season would be beneficial for the starters and allow the Nuggets to get a longer look at some of these guys competing to be on the second unit in the postseason. Yeah.
The KCP thing is interesting, rest for him, because I feel like he's one of those guys, when he falls, he always just falls so hard. And it's like, and I'm going to pick on Anthony Davis. He doesn't fall like Anthony Davis.
He falls a lot.
And I even made that comment watching the game at home. I'm like, oh, hey, Anthony Davis on the floor. But, hey, I don't want them to have conversations about me either. All right, so, Vinny, thanks for coming on. We're going to try to do this once a week, the travel and schedule permitting, and make sure you go to Denver Gazette to see all of our Nuggets news, Avs news, Broncos news, all that stuff. And make sure to subscribe to this podcast on Apple or Spotify. And, Vinny, we will catch up next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.